Welcome to the Deep Dive Books channel, where we hope you find something valuable every day.
Mithu Storoni's book Hyper-Efficient isn't long, so we'll cover it in 3 parts. In the previous parts, we discussed how the brain operates in 3 gears, with the gear 2 being optimal for work. We also explored how to shift gears and allocate brainpower effectively. Today, we'll talk about maximizing brain output. To achieve hyper-efficiency, Storoni suggests envisioning yourself not as an ordinary knowledge worker, but as a mental athlete. Like scientists, artists, or professional chess players, your brain is your most valuable tool. It must be nurtured and trained to unleash its full potential. Storoni points out that all knowledge workers fundamentally engage in the same activities: learning, creating, and problem-solving. Information serves as your raw material. By learning, you gather this material. By creating and solving problems, you process it into a final product: your ideas. This process, Storoni argues, shouldn't resemble a steady assembly line but a series of dynamic climbs, like conquering a sequence of small hills. Imagine a path of rolling peaks ahead of you. Each peak represents a challenge you must overcome. Every climb involves learning, creating, or problem-solving. It requires effort, usually in Gear 2, and occasionally even a burst into Gear 3 for steeper ascents. But once you reach the peak, you enjoy a refreshing downhill glide in Gear 1 before tackling the next hill. This up-and-down rhythm reminds Storoni of a physics experiment. 2 balls are released at the same initial speed. The first travels on a flat path, while the second takes a route with peaks and valleys. Counterintuitively, the second ball reaches the finish line faster, as it gains kinetic energy during each descent. While brain work differs from physics, the principle applies. You need energy. Steady, linear progress isn't ideal. You want bursts of acceleration and excitement. Just as athletes thrive on passion, high-level mental work is most effective with energy and engagement, not monotony. Take learning as an example. To stay in Gear 2 for extended periods, you need enough excitement. This excitement stems from the novelty of the material. But it can't be too novel, or it might trigger anxiety and push you into Gear 3. What you need is a mix of familiarity plus surprise. According to Storoni, citing a concept we've discussed before, the optimal level of novelty is when new content makes up 15.87% of the total material. For complex knowledge, Gear 2 isn't enough. You need high-energy Gear 2. This means actively analyzing new information, identifying its key points, drawing connections, and linking it to what you already know. Good teachers, Storoni notes, can help students reach this high-energy Gear 2. Teaching shouldn't be dull. It should involve drama, vivid scenarios, or emotional resonance. Even subtle cues, like unique sense, can enhance memory retention. These are well-established learning strategies that we've discussed multiple times before. What's unique about Storoni's approach is the suggestion to deliberately stimulate the brain, before and after learning to maintain the optimal mental state. I find the sense of ritual a bit over the top, but it might be worth trying. Here's the specific method. 15 minutes before starting to learn, do 2 sets of sprinting, each lasting 3 minutes. This is meant to prepare the brain with enough energy to enter a high-energy Gear 2. Storoni suggests that high-intensity mental work might require not just glucose but also some lactic acid, which high-intensity exercise can produce. Indeed, research shows that sprinting several rounds 15 minutes before learning new vocabulary can improve learning speed by 20%. Immediately after learning, take a 15 to 30-minute period of calm. During this time, focus inward to process the knowledge you've just acquired. You can take a walk if needed, but avoid any stimulating activities. After the calm period, introduce a small stimulation. Storoni recommends watching a stimulating short video. This was the first time I'd ever read about watching stimulating videos as being beneficial for learning, but there's experimental evidence. Those who watched such videos performed better on tests the following day. It's another proof that stimulation can deepen memory. For hours after learning, engage in 30 minutes of moderate exercise, such as jogging or brisk walking. Research also suggests that this can improve learning outcomes and memory retention. In summary, both physical activity and stimulation are beneficial for learning. You don't want to be a sedentary bookworm. True mental athletes need to exercise. The ultimate goal is to sustain motivation and even joy in your work, immersing yourself fully rather than slogging through it. This brings us to the concept of flow, the pinnacle state for knowledge workers. In flow, you become so engrossed in your work that you lose track of time and self-awareness. Challenges are met seamlessly, and progress feels effortless. Achieving hyper-efficiency requires entering this flow state. Flow has specific conditions. Clear goals, tasks that are challenging but attainable, and immediate feedback. When these elements align, your brain rewards each accomplishment with a burst of satisfaction, creating a rhythm. Challenge, reward, challenge, reward. This rhythm is what makes flow so addictive. It's similar to gaming or gambling, but with only wins and no losses. This rhythm mirrors the earlier analogy of climbing small hills. In flow, each task presents a mini challenge. Conquering it feels like reaching a peak, followed by the reward of gliding downhill before the next ascent. To cultivate flow in any task, break it into smaller challenges, each offering immediate gratification upon completion. Whether you're coding, writing, or designing, tackle the most engaging part first to build momentum. Success in one segment fuels your drive for the next. Even if no part of a task seems engaging, breaking it into segments, and treating each as a milestone can help. The key is finding joy in incremental progress rather than relying solely on willpower. You could also call it a sense of progress. This applies to both work and learning. When you grasp something new or gain a better understanding of how the world works, you acquire a bit more control and certainty. It's this reward that motivates you to keep learning more. Storoni gives an example. Imagine a baby lying in a crib with toys hanging above. The baby kicks a toy, and it moves. Just this simple interaction is an enormous reward for the baby. They realize they can influence the outside world. No guidance is needed. The baby will naturally keep playing. This is what true learning looks like. It's like when Sun Wukong learned the Tao from patriarch Subhuti. Upon grasping a profound truth, he was so delighted he couldn't contain himself, scratching his head, beaming with joy, and breaking into spontaneous dance. This is the effect of intrinsic motivation. Solving problems becomes its own reward. You're filled with curiosity and interest, eager to tackle the next challenge. This phenomenon might be related to the concept of reinforcement learning that we discussed earlier, as explained by Richard Sutton. Reinforcement learning is effective because it rewards not the final outcome but the intermediate process. As long as your current step increases the chances of success, regardless of the eventual result, you get rewarded. Through such training, algorithms begin to find joy in the act of making clever moves. An internal reward in itself. Storoni takes this further, suggesting that, if you continually reward effort, you will naturally start enjoying the process of making an effort. It becomes its own pleasure. Consider high-performing professionals. Even during downtime, they challenge themselves by running marathons or climbing mountains. They simply enjoy the process of effort. Research shows that, when companies face difficulties and uncertainty, these are the people you can rely on the most. While intrinsic motivation is essential, extrinsic motivation is also necessary. We've discussed the idea of pragmatic idealism. Having practical goals is what allows you to take a pursuit seriously. Without a tangible purpose, it remains merely a hobby, a wellness activity, or even a form of performance art. Enjoying the process is important, but so is striving for results. If you're going to do something, you should aim to excel and outperform others. But outcomes are inherently uncertain. Effort does not always guarantee a reasonable reward. Sometimes you may feel confident, yet the market rejects your work, your boss is dissatisfied, or your peers criticize you. Under such pressure, your brain may shift into gear 3, becoming overly anxious and unable to focus. How do you cope? The key lies in whether you perceive the task as a challenge or a threat. Both can push you into gear 3, but threats exert a stronger pull. A challenge means you undertake something to win. It's okay if you don't, but you want to. A threat means you act to avoid losing. You're deeply afraid of failure. For example, if a company announces an assessment where underperformers will be dismissed, that's a threat. However, if the company holds a competition where the top 3 performers get promotions and raises, with no penalties for others, that's a challenge. Research consistently shows that threats cause significantly greater stress than challenges. When facing a threat, people often underperform due to excessive anxiety. On the other hand, challenges are more likely to bring you into high-energy gear 2, allowing you to excel. This is the secret behind athletes' competitive mindsets. After a match, athletes often reflect, saying, "We were burdened by the fear of winning and losing." This is mainly fear of losing. A threat. But if they say, "We had nothing to lose and played without fear," that reflects a challenge mindset. Storoni provides an interesting statistic. During penalty shootouts in the FIFA World Cup, European Championship, and UEFA Champions League, players face both challenge and threat scenarios. In a challenge scenario, the score might be tied at 4-4, and the opponent missed their last penalty. Now it's your turn. If you score, you win. If you miss, the shootout continues. The success rate in such cases is 92%. In a threat scenario, the score might be 5-4, and the opponent has already scored their penalty. If you miss, your team immediately loses. The success rate in this case drops to 62%. So how can you reframe a threat as a challenge? It depends on how much control you feel you have over the situation. A sense of control turns a threat into a challenge, while a lack of control makes it a threat. Reflecting on your skills and accomplishments to build confidence can help. Athletes often perform small rituals or set up routines before a match to create a sense of control. For those designing environments, providing individuals with greater control is key to better performance. This means reducing external, artificial uncertainties. As George Gilder repeatedly emphasizes, governments should aim to offer entrepreneurs a low-entropy stage to operate on. With this, we've concluded the book, Hyper-Efficient. While we strive to function like a supercomputer, humans are not machines. The brain, as a carbon-based system, is influenced by emotions, relies on unstable energy inputs, and requires active adjustments to its gears. Yet it is also the most astonishing device in the universe. More energy efficient than any large language model and capable of bursts of extraordinary creativity. Given the brain's incredible nature, any effort to nurture and optimize it is well worth the investment. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.